Hello log cabin, tiny home and off-grid lovers. My name's Dave, and I was going to share with you over the next couple of videos some of my dealings and maybe a few expertise or not so expertise on log cabin building. I'm going to take you on a tour of the log cabin I built 37 years ago and point out some of the things that worked and maybe some of the things that don't work. We made a parking lot about 100 yards from the cabin, so when you're at the cabin and looking out the windows, you're not seeing cars and motorcycles and all that junk sitting in front of it. So we made a little spot here as we're older to move in closer and unload, but then we move the cars back away. The cabin is 25 feet by 17 feet, and it's got a half loft up in that corner up there. I built it 37 years ago. It's still standing and still looking good. Before we get too much into the tour, let me show you the property that the cabin sits on, because it's really in a lovely setting. And speaking of lovely, here's my wife enjoying the cabin, doing the stuff that we love to do down here, and that is just relax and kick back, enjoy the cabin setting. The cabin sits right on a creek, and it's Father's Day, and that's about the level the water stays at most of the summer. So it looks pretty fishable. This afternoon I'll have to give it a try and see what I come up with. Across the creek is grazing land, and it's right on the foothills of the Blue Mountains. One of the things that we didn't like about the cabin is you can't see the mountains, which are right in our backyard, but we like the creek better, so we're not going to complain too much. We're right in a transition zone between farmland and alpine mountains, so we're in that zone that's all full of cottonwood trees and alders and pine trees and just about every species you can think of. I built the cabin out of the cottonwood logs, and if you're looking around here you can see there's lots of cottonwoods in the area, and I'd cut down the straightest ones of them and hewed them and put dovetail corners and put the cabin together. The logs are really pretty big, some of them. They don't maybe look that big, but there's only 7 logs to make it 8 feet high, so that means that like this log down here was probably about a 18-inch log at the butt. Then they probably tapered down to 12 inches on the other end. You can see the corners still look nice and tight and solid, and I think they're real interesting to look at. I like them a lot. The mortar in between the logs was real mortar. It wasn't the plastic stuff, and I nailed in wire lath, and then I put mortar on it, and then I made a slurry of white cement and lime, and mopped it onto those and the joints, and it stayed nice for 37 years. We haven't done a thing to it. The top part is boards and bats, and we made it out of an old house that we tore down, and the house was made out of 1x10s, so we got to use those, and it really worked out well. Like I said, the cabin's 25 feet long. These logs were one continuous log. I didn't try to splice logs at the door, and I'll explain later why I looked for full length ones. This out here, we do all our cooking in the summer outside, a little summer kitchen, and it just works so nice. You don't have to make a mess inside the cabin. You don't heat it up, and it works out really well. The logs, when you look down them, you can see some of them are hewn very nicely, others are a little more rough. At the time I was doing this, there wasn't a lot of information on hewing logs or making a log cabin. There wasn't YouTube, we didn't even have a computer, and books were scarce that really gave any meaningful lessons. My wife found one on this type of hewing cabin. We were originally going to make it out of round lodgepole and haul them in from 30 miles away, but she found me this book on hewing logs, and I thought I like the looks of that better than round logs. We got lots of trees. Anyway, lots of people gave me a lot of static about using cottonwood. They said they'll rot, they'll, you know, really won't work at all, they'll warp and twist. Well, you get reading history and there's lots of cottonwood cabins still standing, and you just got to learn to work with them, but they work very well. They hew very nice. So you can see some of these corners, the notches look real nice and tight, and people say, you know, they really question how the heck I did those dovetails. It's not a big deal. You just have this log cut at an angle, then you set this log on top of it, and then you transpose these 2 points up onto the log, and then connect them and chisel it out, and they mesh perfectly. So that worked out really well. I'm doing another video that I'll probably post at the same time as this, where I made a model that shows how I put the cabin together, and it'll explain a lot of the details on it. Now let's take a quick trip inside, and I'll show you what the inside of the place looks like. We have a lot of viney maple, and I found these posts that worked for porch posts and turned out pretty neat, I think. Inside of the cabin is this half of it is just all kind of a great room, kitchen, dining room, living room. And remember, now this is a cabin. It's not where we live continuously, and if we lived here full-time, we'd probably change a lot of things. I made this chandelier before antler chandeliers were even really out there that much, so now you see them every place. We just have a wood stove in here, but once in a while, like today, it's kind of chilly, so I got a propane heater there, just taking the chill off, and we'll shut it off a little bit. Again, the inside of the cabin, you read about pioneer women. They loved cottonwood cabins because the logs stayed nice and light colored and don't turn black like lodgepole or larch or any of the other woods. The floor underneath this thing, when I built it, was I put the floor joist lengthwise because I found a load of these 16-foot long 2x6s tongue and groove, and I put plastic paper or plastic underneath it, and then put these directly on this. So there's just a one thickness floor. And this cabin we basically use from March to November, and so we don't stay here year round. I'll take you up the stairs in a second and show you the loft. We got a kitchen area, but we've about quit using our stove. We use a microwave, a toaster oven, and cook outside. So I think in the near future we're going to revise this kitchen to work for us a little better. We got a small bedroom on this side with just a standard size bed in it. This is a bathroom, which I won't show you very long because we're in the process of remodeling it and making it into a complete bathroom. We don't have running water here, but we use a creek for everything but drinking. And okay, up in the loft here, it's really pretty roomy. We got 2 single beds. We used to have a king in here, but this really works better. People with kids can come up. You can put about 4 or 5 kids up in here, and they like it very much. So then looking down, it's kind of a neat setting. They like hanging over the railing and screaming and yelling and carrying on. These rafters were made out of just about 4 or 5 inch lodgepole, and when we put tin on the roof this year, they had not settled and become crooked at all. They just stayed as straight as a string. I was really pretty surprised. I guess the fact that they're at a 45 degrees angle makes them pretty rigid. So this is pretty much what the inside of our cabin looks like. I'll come downstairs and I'll maybe talk about a couple more little details. We're going to go back outside and I'll talk about the roof a little bit. We put a new tin roof on it this last summer, and it used to be hand split shingles. And even though they were as sound as a dollar yet, in the valleys up there they were starting to rot. Now, these were, I hand split these tamarack shakes. It used to be that you could go to the Forest Service, get a permit, cut firewood, and so I was able to cut it and then split them into shakes. And we're going to use them in projects, crafts projects and stuff. The only thing I don't like about the tin roof is the noise. You can hear every raindrop, you can hear every twig fall on it. We even put 1-inch foam under it, found out that that foam just works like a drum head and transmits the sound. I guess I should have put the tin up a tiny ways from the styrofoam so it didn't pick up the noise. Well, that's about it. Look for my other YouTubes on how I built the log cabin. I'm going to hew one log and kind of show you the steps of how I hewed it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And well, after 37 years, it'll be interesting to see if I can still hew a log. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the tour.